Hello and welcome to this episode of Table Space. This episode we're going to be magnetizing an Exocrine and Haruspex. First up, build the body, and right between those two holes at the bottom of that neck piece, make your pilot hole and drill. I'm using a 2mm magnet here. I do think if you're going to do this, put a bigger size magnet if you can. So drilling the hole, I'm going to go ahead and dry fit the Exocrine head just to make sure I have a good fit, and then I'm going to go back in and just make sure that hole is flush, and we'll sand it down so that magnet doesn't have any trouble getting in. So dry fit there, just making sure I have everything aligned that's going to fit. And we're going to go ahead next and get some green stuff. I like to use green stuff for placing magnets versus milliput because green stuff is a little less malleable. I use the Superfine milliput, so I'm used to the milliput really being malleable. And it just has that, to me, a little bit of an extra stick with the magnets. So green stuff, we're going to push it in the hole, but also want a little bit of it around the site of the hole too. It's like an awkward little position to get it in, but there we go. And this is the first magnet, so I'm not too concerned about polarity at this point, because I'm going to basically base it off of this first one. So once we get the green stuff in, we're going to go ahead and get a magnet. Now, I like to put my magnets on the back of my drill bits. It's just a nice fine piece. You know, it's thin, it's narrow. I can get into these complex street spots depending on the model. And we're going to put some glue, making sure to put enough glue where it's going to stick, but not enough that the glue is going to run off the side and stick to the bottom of the drill bit. And just pushing it in, it goes right through. The green stuff helps provide enough resistance where I just don't go, through the hole into the cavity of the model. All right, got that down. So now we're gonna just take a bunch of green stuff and just kind of push it in there, making a little sticky wall for the opposing magnet that's gonna hold the head up to fit in. So once I have enough green stuff, I'm going to go ahead and do like another dry fit just to see if it has like that sticky sound when I pull it off, and it does. So I know we're in. I know we got enough. And what I'll do is I'll take the magnet and I'll just stick it onto the first magnet. That way polarity is not going to be an issue because I know it's going to stick once it's done. So again, putting some glue, enough where it's going to stick, but not enough where it's going to run off and stick to the neck piece and to the magnet that it's sticking to. And we're just going to take the head, just push it in and hold it there for maybe like 5 to 10 seconds and then just rip it off really quick. And there we go. For the next head, I'm not sure if it's the way I modeled it, but I just found it really didn't have many contact points to the neck piece. The only place that it did contact well enough was at the top, or the base of the head at the top. So did a couple of dry fit attempts where I could really see where it connected well and started making some marks with a marker. Now you can see there's a seam right there, so your pilot hole and your drilling is going to be pretty easy to get through. It's a very thin piece of plastic right there. Just make sure whenever you're creating your pilot hole and drilling that you're kind of sandwiching the two pieces of either side of that spine together. You'll see in a second here. So just making my pilot hole. All I had was a silver marker on the end. Black would have been better, of course. So I'm starting to realize that if I start to drill too hard, the seam's going to start to bust. So I'm going to take my thumb and just kind of push where those little chimneys are. I'm going to start pushing the two seams together just to make sure I don't drill too hard and start ripping open all the glue that I put. Once I get it deep enough in there, I take my X-Acto knife, kind of just sanding the edges. And I'm going to go back in with a drill bit and just do the same thing. Just making sure it's flush. So just checking, and it fits perfectly in there. I'm going to be a little bit more generous with the green stuff than I did with that first one at the bottom of the neck, just because it's a bigger magnet. And these were just a little bit more flush, so I was concerned that they were just going to fall right through as soon as I started pushing the magnet in. Another dry fit, making sure that green stuff is sticking where I think it is, and it was sticking at the base of the back of the head. So there it is. Again, not being too concerned with polarity here. All right, making my mark, and again, this is in the middle of 2 seams, so just be very careful and just be mindful as you're making your pilot hole and drilling. I use this, obviously a smaller magnet for this piece, so I start drilling, and then once I get what I think is deep enough, I'll take the magnet and just dry fit it in there. No glue, no green stuff, just to see how it fits, and had a really good flush fit, so I was happy enough with that. So just pop it out and stick it over there. So I used what I thought was enough, but this amount of green stuff was unfortunately still a little too much, but I got it to work. I put the glue in the hole with the green stuff because this magnet is a lot smaller, and I'm just concerned about glue running off the magnet if I would have just put the glue at the top of the magnet. So there we go. And this is when I realized the green stuff, while it was very small, it's still too much because the magnet was not as flush as it was prior to me gluing. But I did what I could, but it still works well enough. I think if it was a little more flush, it wouldn't be as wobbly. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's doable enough for me. Moving on to the arms. The arm sockets are big enough to fit a 4mm magnet just fine. So just doing a couple of dry fit tests here. And once I figure out kind of how I want the magnet to sit, just drop a glob of green stuff in there and just glue it. So I will be honest, after magnetizing for a while, you do kind of, at least for me, I get a little bit lazy with my polarization. My trick, I used to mark the dots with a marker on either side, but again, I just kind of get lazy with it now. Put a little bit of green stuff after you snip the ball joint off. It helps the magnet stick. And then I'm going to take that row of magnets and stick it to the arm socket to check polarity. That way I know what side I need to glue to the arm. Just mashing out that green stuff, making sure it's flat and flush. And checking polarity again. Yes, I know I am lazy with this. After a while, you just kind of, go with the flow. So being careful with the glue, enough to stick it to it, but not enough to run over and start gluing itself down the line of magnets here. And just repeat that for the other side for this Exocrine claw. The Haruspex one, you do need to be a little bit more careful. As you can kind of see for a split second, there is a hole in the center of this ball joint because, again, you're gluing 2 seams of the arm together. So I put a little bit of extra green stuff, enough to stuff in that hole, and then enough to make flush with the base of that ball joint that we cut in half there. And check polarity again. Rip it off and repeat for the other side. Now, when I finished all of this, I went back and added some milliput and some green stuff to the top because after a while the head was starting to sag. Now I did use a 2mm magnet at the base of the neck. I think if I would have used a 4mm magnet at the base as well as on the top, I would have had no issues at all. The Haruspex head is a bit wobbly. Keep in mind, this guy's going to be glued down to a base and it's going to be moving not that much during a game anyway. So I'm perfectly fine with it. Couple of shake tests, and yes, it is going to fall off. Now, if you're worried about transport, you could always just magnetize the head down to your magnetization sheet anyway. But if you're wanting some more reinforcement, there is some more room. You can kind of repeat what I did with the top of the Exocrine head. Just add you a magnet that's going to be able to fit to the base of the neck. And again, very easy job. All you need to do is just build all the pieces, the body, then build the separate heads and build the separate arms. If there is anything else that you guys would like to see done magnetized wise, please let me know in the comments below. If this video helped you please let me know in the comments below. And if you think there's a better way of explaining or doing these videos, I'd also appreciate a comment. Take care, guys. Peace and happy gaming.